On today's show, what's behind the Capitals' success at scoring 5-on-5 this season? And Matt Rempe will be in the lineup as the Capitals take on the Rangers.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the Capitals are preparing to take on the Rangers, and ultimately, what are they going to have to do to get back into the win column? This was a team that was on a 5-game winning streak, and all of a sudden the Tampa Bay Lightning came along and put a kink in their plans and ended that 5-game winning streak. How do they get back into the win column? I'll talk about that. Later, I'll talk about Matt Rempe will be in the lineup as the Capitals take on the Rangers. Yes, that Matt Rempe and all the injuries that surrounded him the last time the Capitals and the Rangers faced each other. A little bit later, we'll talk about how Sgarbossa gets the call-up and is back in the lineup with Matt Roy going on the injured reserve. But just to get it going here, talking about the Capitals' success in 5-on-5 and what has changed this season versus last season. You take a look at it, the Capitals have had great luck scoring 3 or more goals this season. Something that eluded them last year is they struggled to find consistent goal scoring. They struggled to find goal scorers on the team that could score multiple goals. I mean, if we take a look briefly here at last season, what do we remember? We remember that Alex Ovechkin got off to his slowest start in his entire career. It was Dylan Strome that was the guy that carried the bulk of the mail for the Capitals. But this is a different Capitals team this year. And ultimately, why is that? Well, it's partially my assessment that, BMAC went out there and made some big acquisitions, picked up some big name players. The players I'm talking about. I'm talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, Duhaime, Radish, Chikrin, Matt Roy, these kind of players that I think in a lot of ways it filled a lot of the gaps that was on this team last year. And it's not just that, because if we take a look at the lineups in particular, the first line, well, those were all players that were on the Capitals last season. I just think that it was a mix and match to find what players work the best together. I mean, be honest with me here. Did you really see Alexei Protas being on the top line with Alex Ovechkin, excuse me, and Dylan Strome? We saw Alexei Protas grow by leaps and bounds, but I don't think anyone saw that great success. The Capitals' success can be largely attributed to their performance at 5-on-5. That's the biggest thing. One of the things that was deficient last year, an area where last season's roster struggled big time. And it was one of the reasons that many questioned their ability to even make it to the playoffs, period, and how they were able to do it with a negative 37 goal differential at the end of last season. That on paper, many people didn't believe that this Capitals team would be able to go very far. They did the unthinkable thing by making it to the playoffs, but what do we know? They got fanned out in a hurry. They got swept by the Rangers in the first round. But that negative 37 goal differential last year, that was horrible. That was the worst by any playoff-bound team since the Whalers, with a negative 38 and the Canucks negative 72 in the 90-91 season. So to say that a change was needed, I think, is an understatement, and ultimately why I think that former GM Brian McClellan went out and made those big acquisitions. And he was able to do that because he had extra money available, just due to Kuznetsov not being on the team, his contract being terminated, going back to the KHL. TJ Oshie being on LTIR, same goes with Nick Backstrom, that it was able to open up the piggy bank for the Capitals and acquire some big name players. And some of those players, there was met with skepticism. PLD, who I'll talk about in this segment, there was a lot of skepticism, but has been one of the biggest contributors. Not necessarily finding the back of the net, but his hockey sense, his ability to move the puck is what has been huge. But the biggest success story for the Capitals, or one of them, I guess I would say, is the Dylan Strome line. That is the line, of course, that includes Alexei Protas and Alex Ovechkin. And as we take a look at it, Dylan Strome was the center that played with Alex Ovechkin primarily last year. So I guess for me, that didn't come as too much of a surprise. What was a bit surprising to me is that many had perceived that it would be Pierre-Luc Dubois playing on that top line. But I think that at the end of the day, there was some chemistry between Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin. But it was a bit cryptic. If we take a look back at breakdown day and the days that followed at the end of last season, is that Alex Ovechkin said that he felt like he lacked chemistry with the center. So I thought that PLD would have been that front runner to be on that top line center. But in any event, that's rather here nor there. That line is contributing and getting scoring goals and doing great things, and ranks 9th in the league with an expected goals percentage of 64.9. So quite an about face over last season. If you take a look at it last season, it was primarily Alex Ovechkin, Dylan Strome, and Tom Wilson up there at points. We saw Oshie mixed in that as well. That I don't know what it is. How did Spencer Carberry, how was he able to take a look at it and say, hey, Alexei Protas on this top line is going to be huge. And then also we are going to change it up a little bit and then have Alex Ovechkin on the right wing and have Dylan Strome at center. A bit of a stroke of genius. And I don't know if that was just a hunch. I don't know if there was some analytics behind it. But at the end of the day, that line has been very successful. This is the second line for the Capitals. That is the line that is being centered by Pierre-Luc Dubois. That was the player that was met with quite a bit of skepticism this last summer, kind of ridicule around the NHL. What are the Capitals doing? A huge contract. He signed that 8-year deal with the Kings, and he'll be on the hook for the Capitals for 7 seasons. Are the Capitals crazy? It seemed kind of an odd move for the Capitals to make. But I think that you take a look at it, I choose to look at it as a blip on the radar for PLD on the Kings. Like I've talked about on the show, misutilized, underutilized, all of those kind of things. I think he is thriving in this environment, and it's showing. That is a line he centers with Connor McMichael and Tom Wilson. And 2 huge bodies. I think that's the biggest thing. And if you want to see the proofs in the pudding, if you will, is that Tom Wilson and all the goals that he's scoring. I think that Connor McMichael is a much better player. And I'm not trying to say that those players in and of themselves have not grown and become better players. But what I'm saying is that I think that Pierre-Luc Dubois actually makes that line better. I think that he helps Tom Wilson be a better goal scorer, and the same goes for Connor McMichael, who is the smallest, even though he's not that small of a guy on that line as well. Really thriving. And I don't see a whole lot changing, Capitals fans, unless someone gets injured. Say there's a dip in production. Those top 2 lines are rock solid. And later in the show, I'll talk about the question marks that surround the third line. But all things considered, this team is just killing it, especially 5-on-5. And if you take a look at it, both of those line combinations are doing well and are ranked among the top 17 in the NHL at 5-on-5 expected goals percentage. So quite an accomplishment and quite an about face for the Capitals over last season. If you take a look at it, -37 goal differential. Wow. Is there any surprise that the Capitals got eliminated in short order? And promising, I feel promise about this season that if they do make it to the playoffs, despite all the talking heads and everyone that have panned this team, I'm hopeful that they'll be able to make it to the playoffs, and they're going to be able to do that with rock solid 5-on-5 scoring. And like I've illustrated in this segment, the top two lines for the Capitals are killing it. Now, sometimes you can learn a lot about the future by taking a look at the past. And let's take a look at the last season by comparison. By the end of the 23-24 season, there was only one of the Capitals lines. That was the McMichael, Protas, Anthony Mantha, or McPromo line was in the top 50. And when you take a look at that, we take a look at McMichael, who has grown by leaps and bounds, and I think has even grown even more this season. That he's doing that because Pierre-Luc Dubois and Protas. I think that he needs to work on his confidence a little bit, but I think he can take the Capitals to the next level as well. And of course, Anthony Mantha, who we know is a Calgary Flame, but not sustainable. The very fact that the Capitals were able to make it to the playoffs period last year is quite luck, I guess I'm going to say, a bit at the end of the day. I think that TJ Oshie was part of that missing ingredient, and this team found a way to pour it on towards the end of the season. I don't want to dwell too much about last season, but you take a look at it after Mantha's left at the trade deadline, the Capitals finished with only one line in the top 80. That was highlighting issues in offensive efficiency. And what ties in with that negative 37 goal differential is that the opposing teams are scoring goals. Just the Capitals in general were not scoring goals. But this year, it's a whole lot different. Those two lines have converted superb play into real offense, scoring a combined 10 5-on-5 goals. So great growth, a lot to be excited about. And, you take a look at this last game, and it's interesting, the Capitals can win 5 games, and it's like, yeah, whatever. They lose one game after winning 5 straight, and everyone's like, I told you this team was no good. That I think that it's going to be a good test for this team taking on the Rangers. But in particular, like the team statistics, the Capitals rank 6th in the league in 5-on-5 expected goals against per 60 minutes. So quite an accomplishment, and also ranked 9th in expected goals per 60 minutes. So again, real great growth, and not to be lost in all of this either is the fourth line. Duhaime, Dowd, and Radish, I think, is rock solid, and we hope that line can continue to play as well. But as far as lines 1 and 2 are concerned, the Capitals have absolutely knocked it out of the park. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Sgarbossa gets recalled from the Hershey Bears onto the big team. Where does he fit in, and whose job is a bit in question? I'll discuss straight ahead. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And there is a lot of football being played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games you're more into, like the Commanders, that Hail Mary pass, touchdown, quite an accomplishment, or the Ravens. But maybe it's a weekend and, your team isn't playing. Put a little bit of money on some of those games with the FanDuel app. All of a sudden, all those games got that much more exciting. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's FanDuel.com. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And it is the frustrating part. Your team's playing. Your football team's playing. The Commanders. I want to see the Commanders. But are there tickets available? And what will the field look like from where you're sitting? Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. They make it so easy. Download the GameTime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. Michael Sgarbossa gets the big call-up for the Capitals with Matt Roy going on the injured reserve. So my knee-jerk reaction right away, I hear that Sgarbossa is getting called up. Where does he fit? I didn't have to think about it for 1 second. I'm like, all makes sense. Lapierre has been a weakness on this team this year. Again, it's really early. Not to here to say it's doom and gloom surrounding Hendrix Lapierre, but right away, I didn't have to think about it, nor should you as Capitals fans. I mean, let's be honest here. Was Strome coming out of the lineup? Was Dubois, Dowd, were any of those players going to come out of the lineup? No. All of those centers have been rock solid. The one guy that needs to show some more growth, despite the fact that he played really good last season for the Caps and the Hershey Bears, is Hendrix Lapierre. So Michael Sgarbossa gets another look, at least for now. And that was due to Matt Roy going on the injured reserve. But that was confirmed today. Sgarbossa gets recalled, placing Matt Roy on injured reserve. So kind of a bittersweet thing, I guess I'm going to say. I was really looking forward to seeing Matt Roy. We only got a chance to see him in one game. Is he living up to that fanfare? I mean, the whole reason he got brought to this team in the first place was a solid defenseman. A lot of people drew comparisons to the Orpik Niskanen deal like 5 summers ago, whatever it was. Time flies. It's been quite some time. That it was a facelift for the Capitals blue line, similar to that. I think that that's where people are drawing lines to, is picking up 2 big defenders in the form of Chychrun and Matt Roy. But we'll have to wait a little bit longer for Matt Roy, which is a little bit interesting, as Tarek El-Bashir said on the last game that he was on for TNT or whatever the network was called, that he is getting closer to returning. As it appears, it's going to be a little bit longer, and at practice today was in a non-contact jersey. The Capitals called Sgarbossa up ultimately to enhance their roster due to depth and Hendrix Lapierre's poor start to the season. And, it's one of the things, that third line in particular, has been rough. We saw Sonny Milano in the first game and yanked out of there. And then we've seen Jacob Vrana inserted with all the excitement that surrounded it. Hey, Jacob Vrana, can he, make the team on a PTO? He's here, and hasn't had any real success, I guess I'm going to say. So the third line in particular is one that needs a lot of work. And can Sgarbossa be that guy? I think he really can. So let's just take a look at this offseason that I've spoke about with Lapierre. In 7 games played, 0 goals and 0 assists. Got to do better than that. I'm pulling for Hendrix Lapierre. I think he's a great player. Just a bit off to a slow start, I guess I'm going to say. So let's contrast that with Sgarbossa. 9 points, 1 goal, 8 assists in 7 games. So market improvement over Lapierre. Is he going to be in the lineup versus the Rangers? I think there's a pretty good possibility that, yes, that could be the case. And I think that it's just trying to get all lines firing on all cylinders. As you know, if you have a car and one of the cylinders isn't firing, say the spark plug is messed up on it, your car's going to run rough. Well, there are 4 cylinders. Yeah, this team's a 4-cylinder. It's not a 6. Hey, I wish there could be. That, even if with one of those cylinders not firing, the engine is running rough, despite the fact that, it's probably going to get you here and there. With one of the cylinders not firing, the team is not firing well either. Like I talked about in the previous segment, first line, second line, and fourth line playing well. That third line still needs improvement. But Sgarbossa filled Lapierre's spot on the third line during Monday's practice today. So it does appear if, in fact, he will be in that lineup. That was with Jacob Vrana and Andrew Mangiapane. And, Andrew Mangiapane is the guy that was put, I think, on that third line to be the spark plug to get that team going. Initially it was supposed to be Protas playing on that third line, but we know how Protas is playing well on that first line. That Andrew Mangiapane, I think, at least at first, when he first went to that third line, we saw great production. But you need a rock solid center on that third line to get production. And again, Lapierre, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but I'm definitely open to the possibility of Sgarbossa and what he'll mean for this team. And, you take a look at Hershey and why was it Sgarbossa? There are other options in Hershey. And I think it's ultimately familiarity with the team. He played a pretty big role with the Capitals last season. And I think would have had even a bigger role. There was an injury that he faced and that kind of thing. But it wasn't just that. Some people were thinking about tinkering with the lines a little bit, that Connor McMichael, that his native position is the center position. Why don't we move Connor McMichael to the center on the third line? You got to think to yourself, that is actually a really poor idea. The second line is killing it for the Capitals. That's the line with Connor McMichael on there. That I think that trying to do that would then probably have two lines that were inconsistent. So I think at the end of the day, moving a player like Sgarbossa and having him be that third line center, I think is the right idea, and to see if it works. I mean, we know that Matt Roy is on the injury reserve, but he won't be on the injury reserve forever. So if it works, he's got, let's say, a couple games to see if it works. Good. And if not, not. But we need players to contribute on this team. So talking about, the impact on the team is he needs Sgarbossa, that is, he needs to maintain consistency. He wasn't just given this that, hey, Lapierre's not playing well, so you're going to get the job. He's going to have to display qualities that we've seen from him in the past. What have you done for me lately? I know you helped the Capitals last season, but ultimately, what are you going to do for the team this season? And the biggest thing is capitalizing on scoring opportunities and being dependable. That's the biggest thing, being responsible with the puck and in trying to get that third line contributing like the first and second line and at points fourth line are doing. Those are going to be the huge things. Again, if practice Monday is any indicator, it does appear as though he is going to be in the lineup. It's going to be exciting to see what happens. I think it's going to be a Capitals team that's out for revenge. I do expect to see Dylan McElrath in there with Matt Rempe. It's going to be exciting to see how it all unfolds. All right, so coming up here after the break, that was the big news announced today, is that Matt Rempe, who was on the Rangers to start the season, then got sent down to the Wolfpack, but it was a short stay with the Wolfpack as he will be joining the Rangers in what is expected to be a physical game. I'll break it down coming up. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance policy, so your lineups play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So if we take a look at last season and the Capitals making it to the playoffs, it was some down, in the dumps feelings about it. They made it to the playoffs. Yay! They got eliminated in 4 games. Boo! And that is kind of the prevailing thought about my recollection of last season. But it wasn't just that. It was one player in particular on the Rangers, that was the thorn in the side for the Capitals. Injured TVR, injured TJ Oshie. And when it came to answering the bell against Tom Wilson, he said, I don't want any of that. Well, it's going to be time for a rematch tomorrow. Today, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, as the Capitals prepare to take on the Rangers. And I don't think it's kismet. I don't think it's serendipitous that Matt Rempe is getting called up from their AHL affiliate for the Capitals to take on the Rangers. Peter Laviolette, former Capitals coach, knows what's up. He knows that it is going to be a physical match. And the good thing is that we have Tom Wilson on this team. We also have Dylan McIlrath, and let's just say that Dylan and Matt Rempe have a history and they know each other. And I'm not a proponent for violence, so don't get me wrong. But if there is some sort of payback, considering what happened with TVR and TJ Oshie, I guess I'm not going to say I'm going to be very upset about it. But you take a look at Matt Rempe, his assignment was cut short after 4 days in 2 games. That was the plan for him, was to get more action playing with the Wolfpack, right? But all of a sudden, Peter Laviolette looked at the schedule and said, who's coming up here? The Capitals. They have some tough customers on this team. It's not going to be a good game for us if we don't have some muscle on this team. So I think that ultimately he made that impact for the Rangers last season. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not looking at this with Capitals colored glasses on. Matt Rempe does not have a really great skill set other than a tough guy. Quite a bit different than a Tom Wilson, quite a bit different than a Dylan McIlrath. Tom Wilson can score goals. Dylan McIlrath is physical, but also gets involved in assists, those kind of things. And like I said, to deliver some sort of payback for injuries to TVR and TJ Oshie, well, I guess that would be a little bittersweet. And then the fact, like I talked about, that he was not willing to drop the mitts with Wilson. After the fact, he said, well, I didn't want to do it. The momentum was in our favor. That what wasn't it for me to take on Tom Wilson? At the end of the day, I think he knows he would have lost. So that is an interesting thing and an interesting posture for the Rangers to take. He is being recalled before the game. And, make no mistake about it. There's no, it's not ambiguous as to why he's getting called up. And you take a look at him on with the Rangers, no points registered, finishing with a -3 rating in the AHL, excuse me. So he is, not lighting it up. He didn't get called up because he was playing that well in the AHL. He's getting called up to be that physical deterrent, to be that intimidator. And that's ultimately why he's going to be on the team. So I expect it to be a physical game. And, it's going to be at a moment's notice. I think it's not even going to be a certain situation that brings it upon, Dylan McIlrath or Tom Wilson. It's just going to be some chatter that's going to take place, maybe at a face-off or something of that nature that says you want to go. And I think that ultimately that is what is going to happen. Taking a look at his play in the NHL, total of 3 points, 2 goals, 1 assist over 30 NHL games, including the playoffs. He's not on the Rangers. Make no mistake about it. He's not playing on the big team right now because of that. 2 goals, 1 assist. That is not going to earn you a sweater on a night in and night out basis with the Rangers. It's just not, or any NHL team anyway. And Peter Laviolette, when asked about, why is Rempe on the team right now? Why did he go down to the AHL for one? And why did he get called up? Is that they said that they wanted Rempe to get more ice time. And I can see that, but he averaged just 537 of ice time per game prior to his assignment. So I think that the thought there was to get him some more ice time down there to work on his game. Nothing too crazy. We've seen the Capitals do something like that as well. It's just calling a spade a spader. That's what it's all about. We know that Matt Rempe does not have a really great skill set. And there is that history, which I spoke of. Dylan McIlrath, well, he adds complexity to the whole situation as they have fought before in the AHL. And just taking a look at how he fought, how Dylan McIlrath took on Delorier of the Flyers, I wouldn't want to mess with him. And, I think that, a lot of these young guys, they think they're tough. I'm going to go ahead and, draw comparisons to Matvei Mishkov. You play with the bull, you get the horns. And, Rempe's a guy, but he's definitely not built like a Wilson. He's definitely not built like a Dylan McElrath. So expect fireworks. If you're not watching this game tomorrow night, I don't even want to know you. That if you want to see a rematch for the team that eliminated the Capitals from the playoffs, that is absolutely must-see TV. So that is what we're expecting in the game tomorrow, is to see Matt Rempe in the lineup. Again, it's always possible. It's just early indications. He got called up. This isn't Tuesday evening right now, but it does appear as that is the case. A physical deterrent, given the fact that the Capitals have Tom Wilson, they have Dylan McElrath, and Duhaime. I guess I forgot Duhaime in that equation as well, as we have some tough guys in our lineup that aren't afraid of throwing down. Again, I'm not condoning violence, but it is a part of the game. And, when you got a guy, if you got a guy that's like an enforcer, like a Rempe on your team, well, guess what? The Capitals have a few of those, like I talked about, Duhaime, Wilson, and McElrath, that you have to expect at some point there is going to be a fight. And if there is a fight, and if one of the Capitals players does, in fact, take care of Rempe, shall we say, and the Capitals win, well, that will at least help make right what was done wrong last season. That's the big thing. Capitals getting eliminated in 4 games, TVR getting injured, TJ Oshie getting injured. We want payback, and we'll get our chance to get that tomorrow night. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are ultimately what makes this show successful. Of course, on tomorrow's Locked On Capitals, I will have the game breakdown. Will there be that fireworks that we talked about? On paper, it seems like a no-brainer. You're putting Matt Rempe, you're calling him up from your AHL affiliate. Of course, that is what the thought is going to be there. Will that come to fruition? That will be a storyline. But I don't even want to make it all about that. This game is not going to be all about fighting. Don't get me wrong. It's about, can the Capitals get back into the win column against a really good hockey team? I'll have you guys covered tomorrow. That is for sure. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.